Welcome back. My next guest is Gabriel Botero, Director of the White Plains Veterans Center. Welcome, Gabe.
Thanks for having me.
So, Gabe, I'm delighted to have you here. Gotten to know you a little bit over the last 6 months or so with the new Veterans Center that you've expanded and brought over here that's located in Clarkstown Town Hall. Before we get to the Veterans Center and talk about that, I do want to thank you for your service to our country. And I'd like to maybe get a little bit of your background so our viewers can, get an understanding about you as a person and your work as well.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate all your support. You've been a great partner with us here at the Vet Center and opening this cab here in Rockland, here in Clarkstown as well. So I served in the Army from 2006 to 2012, Army National Guard out of Connecticut. I was in an aviation battalion. So I like to tell people when we went overseas, we were kind of like a super cool taxi service because we were ferrying everything from generals to at one point we had the New England Patriots cheerleaders there to.
You must have had a lot of soldiers trying to get in on that flight.
It was definitely. So some interesting experiences, and then a lot of different missions, just getting troops in and out of Iraq. We were actually one of the last units to be considered part of Operation Iraqi Freedom, and then it changed to New Dawn. We pulled out in June of 2010, and in July 2010, and then in August they made it the new operation. So it was a lot of we were there towards the end, and a lot of pulling folks out and gear out and equipment and different things like that. The thing with mental health is any one thing can be stressful, right? Mm-hmm. And any one thing can cause you to deal with symptoms of post-traumatic stress. And unfortunately for us, we did go through some things. I dealt with some things myself when I came home. Mm-hmm. I went to the VA initially, and it was a different experience for me just trying to readjust and become a civilian again. And right. It's something that's very hard to navigate, and the support is there, but you don't really know what's out there. And, right. and a lot of it is, if you can get your foot in the door, it makes a big difference, but the biggest thing is trying to navigate the whole system. Right. And so thankfully, it kind of propelled me into what I'm doing now. I ended up getting some help, got better, and then said, you know what, I want to do this and help other vets. And right. So I was a clinician for some time, and then now I'm here in White Plains at the White Plains Vet Center. So before we get into the Vet Center, just sure. to close the loop on your military service. So you were stationed in Iraq, I assume? Mm-hmm. We're in Kuwait and southern Iraq as well.
Okay. And how long were you over there personally?
I was there for 10 months.
Okay.
So it's a year deployment, but you do, because we're a reserve unit, you do 2 years of kind of 2 months of ramping up before you go over there.
Got it. Okay. And so obviously a very interesting, but also fairly challenging, and that was still a very difficult time. When did you actually go over? What year?
So I was there in 2009 and 2010.
Yeah. So with the surge coming back in, and with some of the issues that have taken place over there, so you were over there in a fairly challenging period of time as well. So obviously you had your experiences, and we're delighted that you're able to come through them. And again, thank you for your service. So. Let's talk about, and by the way, just what was your rank when you finished?
I was a specialist.
Specialist, okay. So let's talk about the Veterans Center for our viewers, for the benefit of them. Explain what a Veterans Center is, and who can actually receive services from it.
Sure. So the Vet Center program was started in 1979. The intent of the Vet Center program is to help returning vets from combat seek mental health counseling services, readjustment counseling, and we try to serve as a conduit of information and like a resource network. It's very interesting because the White Plains Vet Center is one of the first pilot vet centers of the original program. The program started in '79. We started in White Plains in 1982, and it's taken a long time for us to kind of expand to the community because we serve not only Westchester but also Rockland and Putnam counties. And this year has been great because thanks to your support, we've been able to start this satellite office here in Clarkstown. Right now we're here once a week. We've talked about expanding it. If we can get more vets in the door and get really busy, then we can have multiple days, and we can have, hopefully it becomes its own Clarkstown Vet Center, right, at some point. But really what we do is everything from one-on-one counseling to group counseling to marriage and family therapy. And all of our individuals, all the staff are licensed clinical professionals. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker by trade. Although I'm more of an administrator, I joke that I went from being a teacher to now I'm the principal, and don't come to the principal's office because then you're in trouble. But it's been good. It's been good. So here in Clarkstown, we have our psychologist come down. So her name's Dr. Kathy McNamee. She's been doing this for 36 years. She's, I think, one of the most experienced clinicians that we have in the whole program. So it's great that she's here seeing vets, and she's out here providing those services. But you know, that's our specialty, is just the combat treatment. So the vets that are coming back home and dealing with everything from post-traumatic stress to just readjustment to trying to figure out, you know, what do I do next, right? That's really what it's about. A lot of vets ask me, is there a right answer? What am I supposed to talk about? There is no right or wrong answer, right? It's everything that's troubling you, everything from combat experiences to family experiences to relationships to work to just, it's all about readjustment. So that has a big encompassing umbrella. The other thing we specialize in is military sexual trauma. So all of our staff members have some experience. We usually have one individual who specializes in that. In our case, it's Dr. McNamee. So, you know, we definitely want to support those vets that have been through that, and that's pretty much our eligibility. There is no copay or anything like that. The only thing we have is we just want to see a DD-214 to verify service, but that gets the vet in the door.
Yeah, and that's what I found so refreshing about this, because folks can receive some of these types of services if you go through the VA, but you know, you're going to have to travel, you're going to potentially end up in different clinics. This is really kind of just show your DD-214 and you're good. And it also applies to veterans that may not have been honorably discharged. Maybe they had an issue in the military for whatever reason, and they did their service, and then when they left, they didn't leave in good standing. You can still receive services through the Veterans Center, and not having a copay as well. One of the things that we talked about is the ability for some anonymity for the vet. You know, oftentimes vets are going over to you know, a clinic or a hospital, and then they're basically just lumped in with everybody else. And there are folks that may not feel comfortable doing that, and they also may not really feel comfortable having, you know, counseling records, or you know, a record that they've sought out help or treatment that's now accessible through the VA. And so that becomes something that gives some added space and distance for vets. So I think those are all really positive.
Yeah, and I'll add, so I'm glad you mentioned that, you know, the record system is very big, and I think that's a huge issue for a lot of vets. When you go to the VA has a sharing agreement with the Department of Defense, so usually DOD is going to get those records automatically. What that means is the individuals that are still serving, whether they're in the Guard or the Reserve, they feel, or even active duty, they're very hesitant to get help, because they say, well, if I go and talk to somebody about it, DOD is going to find out, my unit's going to find out, I'm going to get kicked out of the military, and so on and so forth. So our record system is completely separate from the VA. The VA can't access it. The VA can't look at it. We are part of the VA, but it's just a separate program. And so that allows us to see active duty folks, reservists, National Guardsmen, and there's a big comfort level there. Right. Because of those agreements. I would also say that we have a huge population of law enforcement individuals and first responders. I think also the same thing. You know, it's not that not that the VA has a sharing agreement with law enforcement or anything like that, but I think there's that fear that it's easier for them to get our records. With us, we're a little more private, so I think vets are more comfortable coming and see us because of that reason. Right,
and this is you kind of talked about, this is a program that's geared and targeted towards, you know, it's towards vets, but we're also talking about recently returning vets. But you know, PTSD can affect the vet at any point in their life, so it's not necessarily limited to just returning vets. Although it seems like that seems like a lot of the people that you're dealing with. You know, unfortunately, we had a fairly high-profile vet within the last couple of years over here who took his own life, and that was an individual that had served in Vietnam, and nobody realized the demons that he was kind of going through, and shortly after his retirement, took his life, took his own life. And I know, talking with another vet, he really talked about PTSD. He talked about how, in older age, guys, as they retire, as they stop working, all of a sudden, the nightmares can come back, or they never really left, but they managed them differently when they had a day job to go to, and now in retirement age. So you have Vietnam vets, even Korean War vets that are having the after effects of PTSD. So those are folks that can also be involved within this program?
Yeah, so it started with Vietnam vets, and then the program has been so successful that it's expanded all the way back to World War II. I actually had a World War II client in my last vet center, and I've seen everything from World War II to Korea to Vietnam to, got out yesterday. And it's amazing. I'll often tell, and I think this is just part of where we're at, right? As a younger vet, so society, I think, is more accepting. Mental health is a positive thing now. People want to get mental health. We're definitely welcomed home, and there's all these opportunities now, unlike the Vietnam vets, unfortunately. But it's changed, right? But at the same time, there's still this stigma and this fear. I don't want to go get mental health. I don't want to be labeled. I don't want people to look at me differently. And so when I talk to the young guys, I often talk about one of my Korean War vets. This was an 85-year-old gentleman, had served in Korea, was a combat medic, had seen all kinds of trauma as a combat medic, and really hadn't talked about it for 60 plus years until he came to the vet center. And if an individual who's 85 years old can sit down and get emotional and talk about the experiences he had in war, what makes you think that you who got out last week doesn't still have that, doesn't still carry that, right? So we're there to help all combat vets, and doesn't matter the generation or when they served, we're here to help. And the reality is, a lot of us come home and get busy, whether it's work or family or working around the house or whatever it is, and we ignore all that stuff. And as we get a little bit older and maybe we retire or things get less busy for us, then they start to resurface and come back to us. So the sooner you can take care of it, I think the better off you are in the long run. So we're happy to help.
A well-known vet over here is a gentleman by the name of Alan Moskin, who's been on this program before. And Alan is a World War II vet. He served in Patton's Army, in the Third Army in World War II. He actually is Jewish and was a liberator of a concentration camp. And he tells a story that he had PTSD. He didn't realize it. He went home, got on with his life and his career. He said it affected him at different points throughout his life, sometimes more than others. And he said he just basically buried all of these experiences and all of these emotions. And then there was an incident with some Holocaust deniers when he was in his 70s, late 70s, and he said he started to speak about it, and it brought all these emotions and memories back, and difficult times. I've seen Alan speak a number of times, and so the case is very well made. That you said earlier about that Korean War vet, but a vet at any point, people can suffer trauma, and trauma does weird things, and it can stay with you. It's better than luggage, because luggage you can sometimes lose. Unfortunately, trauma stays with you forever. In some ways, not to make light of it, but I'm delighted that this is a resource, and I will tell you that I think it's one of the proudest moments of my administration when we partnered with you to open up the Veterans Center here in Clarkstown Town Hall, and it was great this past June to have Congresswoman Lowy and the county executive attend the event where we cut the ceremonial ribbon, where we're now starting services here. It's my hope that outreach like this and continuing efforts will get more vets to come into the Veterans Center, because certainly we know the need is out there, and hopefully people can get connected to the services as well. So Gabe, I think that's all the time we have for today, but what I'd like to do is if you could just give your contact information for the Veteran Center here, and if folks want to get in contact with you as well.
Sure. So the easiest way to get in touch with us is to actually reach us at the White Plains office. Our telephone number there is 914-682-6250. I can also be reached via email if that's easier. It's my first name, Gabriel, Gabriel, and then .botero@va.gov. But yeah, we're in the community. We're here to help. Definitely want to thank you for all the support. It's very exciting for us to be here in this community. I've said it before. I think both Rockland and Putnam counties needed the support, and Clarkstown stepped up, and thank you so much, and we're really excited to be here, and every day gets a little busier, and like I said, we're hoping to get busier and busier, and hopefully have a Clarkstown Vet Center at some point.
Great. Thank you so very much, Gabe. And we'll be right back. Stay tuned.